Hello. Today I will be taking another look at the Baltimore after almost a year since I made my last commentary on it. I called it the beautiful Baltimore and was actually one, it still is, and it was then one of my favorite cruisers, even if it seems to be quite universally disliked. And now the first thing you notice here is I talked to one of the DDs and I basically tried to get him to work with me. A bit of team play. I'll tell him if he smokes me up at B, I'll come radar it for you. This is a bit of a symbiotic relationship that you kind of have as a radar cruiser. The DD helps you out by covering your weakness, which is being detected when you push into a cap, and you help him out by basically countering any enemy DDs, and of course if they have any cruisers pushing in, you also counter that, and you both benefit from it. And, well, not everyone will. If it doesn't agree, you ask someone else, but if you get a DD that agrees, it's always great, because then you can push in and help. Of course, the Belfast tells he can do all of that himself, which is, of course, one of the reasons why the Belfast is considered quite overpowered by multiple people, experienced players particularly, because he can do the same thing as two ships combined by himself, which is of course quite ridiculous. But that's enough about the Belfast. I tell him he has a much better spawn for A, so there's no point for him coming B. The Mayhem starts smoking up early, which is of course great. You don't want to start smoking up once you reach the cap. If you're smoking up for a cruiser, you want to smoke up on the way there. So this Mayhem is playing this quite the way I honestly wished he would. More ships are starting to pop up on the map, and that's okay. Now, one of the strengths on the Baltimore is of course the concealment. I loved it a year ago when I made commentary, and it still is incredibly potent. You go for concealment expert as soon as possible, and of course you slot the concealment module, and I think the concealment drops down to a good what is it, 9.7, something like that. So you get very good stealth on this ship, which is fantastic because you want to be able to sneak up on enemy ships. Now, turns out the enemy DD smoked up even without being detected. That's obviously a misplay, because now we know exactly where he is. I know exactly when I should activate my radar to spot him. He gives me all this information beforehand, and that's why you should never do what he's basically doing here, because now he's a sitting duck. I'm giving a warning, of course. I always recommend giving a warning in clan wars and such. Always give warning on TeamSpeak. Here I give it in chat that I will be radaring in 5 seconds, so the people can prepare and aim their guns and get ready. And thus, when I activate my radar and spot the Mutsuki, in this case, he is pretty much a sitting duck. The Mayhem is already aiming there because I gave the warning, and together we're just hammering the shit out of this poor guy. Of course, you notice that this Mutsuki was forced to dodge the torps, that's why he couldn't accelerate so quickly. That's another reason why you don't sit in a smoke or smoke up before being spotted or anything like that, because, well, of course, the DDs will know exactly where to shoot. I mean, if we're not capping the point, so that means there's a DD in the cap and there's a smoke there, that means we know exactly where he is, and it's very easy for this guy to fire his torps in there. All the battleships are still being fairly passive, and by playing as aggressively as I am here, you see how far away the battleships are when they're trying to hit me. They're gonna struggle. And of course, I stop shooting. I start angling towards the closest battleships, which is in this case the Amagi and the Tirpitz. But in general, I'm kind of just angling back and forth, and I'm waiting. And there we go, I'm undetected, which is exactly what I wanted. The great concealment on the Baltimore is why you can do this stuff, especially on the high tier maps that are very big, like this one for example. There are very long distances between caps and positions and such, so plenty of time to become undetected in between. I start turning and I shoot the Hatsuharu. By the time hopefully they have aimed and shot at me, I will already have turned away. The Baltimore of course has very good frontal armor and is quite tanky when angled towards something, but if you're giving broadside, you are still a squishy cruiser, just like any other cruiser. So seeing the ruin pop up and seeing all this fire come in, I'm just gonna keep angling away, because now I start eating damage since I'm not angled properly. Switching to AP naturally, because there's cruisers. Mogami in particular. The one thing, of course, that is very strong on American cruisers, it was in the past and it still is, the shell arcs are quite slow and lazy, but the penetrative AP power is very, very strong. So if enemy cruisers give you broadside, even battleships give you broadside, you switch to AP and you punish them heavily. It doesn't matter what tier they are, even T10 cruisers, even Zhaos eat citadels if they give enough broadside, regardless of distance with these USN AP shells. In general, there has been some power creep since the last time I made this commentary. In the past, this used to be absolute best anti-air, but now the Donskoy has for some reason superseded it, where it actually has better AAA. And there has in general been an overall power creep at T9 with the Rune being added and the Donskoy coming in, and there's all these new ships being added. So the Baltimore, it was already a bit lacking in the past, and I still feel like it could use with a bit of a rate of fire buff, because it's not that big of a difference. Ouch, 3 citadels. You don't give broadside to, you don't give broadside to Baltimore or Des Moines for that matter. Of course, I'm keep angling away. I'm gonna stop shooting now again because I kind of want to get undetected so I can turn my ship the way I want it. And that's why I like the concealment on this ship. You can every now and then you can just position yourself in stealth, because with your great concealment you can easily choose when you want to like shift out of battle or like disappear into the fog of war, so to say. But yes, I do think the Baltimore still, just as back then, it could use a small buff in rate of fire. I think just shaving off a couple of seconds from the reload, it doesn't have to be many seconds, because it's quite easy to make this thing overpowered because of the great stealth, great AA, radar, and general tankiness, and of course the penetrative power of the AP. But I do feel it's been left a bit behind with the introduction of things like the Rune, which is, in my opinion, still one of the strongest T9 cruisers in the game. And the Ibuki is of course long-range HG spam and so forth, so a bit of more of rate of fire would be very, very appreciated. But I still don't think that this ship is as weak as many people make it out to be, and I still enjoy this ship so much. It requires more tactical play and requires choosing your volleys more conservatively because of the longer reload, and your angling and such is incredibly important. But it still has a lot of power thanks to the incredibly potent radar, and it's still capable of pretty much shitting on any other cruiser in a 1v1, except of course tier 10 ones. But pretty much any other... What the fuck am I watching? I'm sorry, but I am... What? This... I saw him on the minimap, North Carolina, so I was pointed the other way. He's reversing towards the enemy. His name is Mentally Challenged Person. I'm literally asking, what am I watching? Okay, sorry, that completely threw me that completely threw me off my train of thought, what I was even saying. God what the hell? What is wrong with Battleship players? Anyway, of course, my team has in general been fleeing, and sadly this Belfast that I had such great hopes for, that he was talking so much about all the stuff he can do himself. I thought he understood the value of his radar and understood the value of his radar hydro smoke combination, so that he could actually push into B and like help win these caps for us. But looks like he's and the other guys there on the left, they're just chasing the enemy ships into the spawn for absolutely no reason. I'm telling them, less hiding, more pushing. We need pushing power into B. They have 2 caps. It's even in ships, but they have a cap advantage right now, and the team for some reason is sailing around everything, so I'm trying to like encourage them to go into B. And I'm just gonna lead by example. I get spotted here, by the way, and as of course before I mentioned, the concealment is so low on this, so if you get spotted you can pretty much instantly radar and you will spot the enemy DD. With the help of the radar, of course, which is what I do here. And I call target on him as well, since he's going to be spotted for another 20 seconds, so it would be nice if my team would start assisting me, and they are. And there you get a good example of what happens when you give broadside. That was the Bismarck, no doubt. I gave too much broadside towards him, far in his own spawn, and I got instantly punished for it. So that is of course the weakness of the Baltimore, just like the New Orleans and even the Des Moines. They are quite easy to citadel if they give broadside. Of course we're not talking like Royal Navy easy to citadel, but they can still be citadeled quite comfortably. if you give broadside. So as soon as I angle, of course, no more citadels, just some AP penetrations, but even those aren't that big of a deal considering you can still heal up, and you got a fairly good HP pool at 43k HP. The Amagi seems to be turning towards me, so I'm gonna take this opportunity to just straight up bail. I do have a fire ticking on the Hatsuharu, and I don't think he has a repair because I nailed so many shells on him. Your shells, of course, have a 17% chance of starting a fire, I think with Demolition Expert, and is it with the flags as well. So you become a fairly decent fire starter, not the best, but a fairly decent one. Let's see if I can nail this Mogami. That was the Hatsuharu burning to death, as expected. Someone really punished this Amagi for giving broadside. Should I shoot him? Might as well go for him as well. Took some fairly big hits, but once again, at any point I can disappear from the battle and disengage. And this is of course one of the reasons why even on high tier cruisers, I just can never recommend using that rudder shift module. It's absolutely impossible for me to recommend it for anyone because stealth is just such a fantastic tool for cruisers. If that rudder shift module was replacing any other module, I might consider, I would heavily consider recommending it, and I might heavily consider using it. But as long as it's being used to replace the stealth, the most important tool for cruisers, it's just impossible for me to recommend it. It's just pointless. Here, as I said about the Belfast, you can see our Belfast and the Friedrich de Grosse are going up the 1 and 2 line, chasing these guys around in the spawn. Instead, they should have been helping us here. Especially Friedrich de Grosse has great German hydro, Belfast has radar smoke, all these things. And instead of using all these tools where they should be used at the capture points, they are sailing around in the enemy base, trying to chase these guys who are fleeing from them for absolutely no reason. I mean, they will obviously get fairly abysmal XP already, but like, it just baffles me. Why do people who have the best tools for certain situations insist on misusing them? Of course, Ruin, just like any other cruiser, giving broadside to a Baltimore will get him Citadel. Oh, and he got absolutely deleted by torpedoes. Didn't even have time to shoot him. I think I'm gonna push in further here. So there's Kutuzov here. And of course, Kutuzovs are quite fun targets for the Baltimore in general. I mean, Kutuzov is in general a very strong cruiser, but with the help of your stealth, you can easily get the jump on him, because Kutuzov, even with the module and the captain perk, only goes down to like 11.1 km concealment. So you basically get the spotting advantage on him. You get into his comfort zone, and you can just wreck him from within it. And if he tries to smoke up, you can just radar. Just like against Royal Navy cruisers, the Kutuzov might as well be a Royal Navy cruiser for all you are concerned. You counter it just as hard as you counter any other Royal Navy cruiser. So some of the power creep that might have popped up, like since I made my last commentary, like things like the Kutuzov, they aren't really that big of a threat to this ship, simply because you have all the tools to deal with them. When I did my last commentary, of course, the Baltimore didn't have the lovely radar, but it's such a perfect fit for this ship, and in general for the US cruisers. Having this radar is just a fantastic tool to use. I use it now here because there's no more DDs to spot, and I use it to see if this Kutuzov is going to peek around this corner. Of course, take a quick shot at the Aiva, and now I'm going to just dodge into cover. I'm going to put this island between me and him so I don't get wrecked by him. Let's see, is this Kutuzov about to peek out? It looks like he's peeking out. My radar ran out, but I did get one volley off, which is of course an instant Citadel on him. Oh, he's giving a lot of broadside. Aim for the waterline underneath the smokestacks. Okay, not the best dispersion there. Just gonna park here. I don't have any intentions of any like inclination of charging through this gap, as long as there's the Turpid sitting there and the Iowa sitting on the other side of the island. I'm just gonna play it safe. There's also of course the risk of Kutuzov torpedoes. Okay, the Iowa is pushing up now and leaving that gap, so this is my, not only do I need to move because I don't want to stay here fighting him full broadside on, but I also want to push in there and deal with this Kutuzov before the game ends. In fact, it looks like this game is about to end very, very soon, because We have 970 points now. Taking some AP volleys at the turrets while I'm closing the distance with this Kutuzov. AP, of course, at broadsiding battleships with USN AP, that is, does a significant amount of damage as well. But he's not really my main target. Of course, when you get this close to a Kutuzov, just like if you get this close to a Royal Navy cruiser, you need to be prepared to quickly turn your ship around because there will be torps coming your way, no doubt. I hit the island. Here's his torps, slowing down, turning in. I will hit one, but that's not the end of the world. You see his AP? His AP did a total of 0 damage there. From pretty much point blank Kutuzov full volley of AP, did 0 damage. Because when you angle with the ship, you're pretty much immune to all AP. If a Kutuzov can't pen you from that range, trust me, the Royal Navy can't either. Got a nice chunk of credits. Damage 128k, which is pretty good honestly for a Baltimore, because these ships aren't really that much about the damage, because you're more about hunting DDs, denying, area of denial and such. You're not that much about frag hunting. So overall, quite a good game. Against, well, the matchmaking was fairly in my favor, except for of course all the battleships and such. Anyway, as usual, I will move on to the modules and captain perks. As usual, I will start with the modules. Now, I actually don't value the range upgrade that much. I mean, you should get it, but I don't think it's worth it as getting it as the first upgrade, because you don't really use range that much, whereas the hull upgrade gives you a lot of important things that you want. It gives you rudder shift time, it doesn't actually give concealment, and it gives you rudder shift time, and it gives you a significant chunk of HP, and of course later on you can get the main battery upgrade, which reduces your reload, which is something you very much need and something I value highly. Once you've gotten those two, then I recommend a range upgrade. Consumable wise, I always recommend a premium repair and at least use the premium heal for the low cooldown and additional consumable. Main armaments, very straightforward here. AA guns range to get that 6 kilometer range on your big AA guns, and main battery mod 3 for that faster reload, because, well, as I said, the ship really needs that reload. On the Des Moines you want to use the gunfire control for longer range, but on the Baltimore I much prefer main battery mod 3, because it's just so valuable, far more valuable than the range on this ship. Damage control, because you don't lose rudder or engine that often, rudder shift, and finally concealment. Once again, I'd love to recommend steering gears mod 3, but as long as it's replacing stealth, which I value so highly, I can't recommend it for pretty much any cruiser at all. Basics of survivability captain perks wise: expert marksman, superintendent to get an additional of all those consumables, demolition expert to get that fire chance up, you'll love that on the Des Moines especially, and concealment expert, which is once again a must-have, something I value very highly and something you saw me use quite often in the commentary. The last 3 points will go into vigilance for my usual cruiser build. Anyway, that was my updated Baltimore commentary. I hope you guys enjoyed it.